All right, let's talk about North America. Let's talk about Canada and Mexico. And this story is unbelievable. If you've been wondering, like, what in the world is happening? Why are we hearing continual stories about, like, America's borders just being like a porous sieve? Thousands of people pouring across the border on a regular basis. We hear about people sleeping in tents all over through Texas and into Florida and Alabama and all the places, right? They're being bussed and flown up to Martha's Vineyard now. So what in the world is going on? America has an absolute immigration problem, and that's no secret. But could it be that it's all part of a bigger plan? Could it be that this was all planned from the beginning? Makes you wonder, right? I never really thought about it this way. I mean, I knew that Democrats certainly wanted it this way, but I didn't really think that, wow, there was something larger at play here. Maybe the World Economic Forum, the United Nations working in cahoots on all of this? Well, we'll get there in a second. But first, Lara Logan, excellent independent journalist, she blew this story out of the water, and it is literally mind-blowing. So I just want to set this up. I want her to explain what she thinks about the American border situation. She was on the Steve Bannon show. It's amazing he can still do a show. Like, I'm curious, like, when he's not like,
right. How does he get away with?
They keep like grabbing him, and then he goes back to doing a show. And anyway, just focus on Lara Logan, okay? And I want you to listen to what she says about the border, and then we're going to get into some more nuggets here. Just listen.
Is the border of the United States not only not secure, but is there definitionally an invasion of this country, ma'am?
The border is wide open because we are living under a globalist policy of open borders. So there is no border security to speak of. Weapons are flowing across, drugs are flowing across, people are flowing across, money is flowing across, illicit funds, and so on and so on. I mean, everything that comes with an open border is what's flowing.
Okay. So we know that, right? The border is wide open. I think he was just setting her up. Like, what is your response to this? What do you see here? But then she drops the bomb. Okay. She's starting to drop the bomb here. And so she has a source. Might be hard to understand with her accent, but she has a source inside at a high level at the United Nations who just made a jaw-dropping statement. Listen to what she says.
And the reason it's happening, Steve, it's not just an invasion. It is an invasion, but an invasion that is part of a long-term plan and political ideology to obliterate the sovereignty of this nation and change the way the world looks forever. It's not just America's sovereignty that's on the chopping block. It's sovereignty all over the world. It's just that this is the place that is the light and the guide for the whole world.
So it's a part of a plan? That we're just having porous borders and thousands of people are pouring across the border every day? Like, what would be the motivation for that? Why would they do that in the United States? Well, now it's coming together. So pay attention to what she says next. Listen.
And what I learned from a source who is a very unique source, having infiltrated the globalist cult at the UN level, is that he was in high-level meetings that required a number of security clearances where they actually discussed the plan to bring 100 million people into the United States in order to pave the way for a regional government of U.S., Canada, and Mexico.
What? This was the plan. A high-level source at the United Nations with multiple levels high of security clearance saying that this was discussed, authorized, executed upon to allow 100 million people to pour across the border into the United States, therefore completely altering. We've already seen it altering voting landscape in the United States.
Yes.
Right? Maybe not to the way that Democrats had hoped, actually, but certainly changing the demographics of state after state after state. To have 100 million new people in the United States. In many ways, and what she's saying is it would just make it like irrelevant to have borders. What's crazy?
What's crazy is, like, there was a long time ago, probably 15, 20 years ago at this point, that I listened to Alex Jones, and he talked about this back then.
I just saw someone in the chat saying Alex Jones has been saying this for years.
Yes,
that's crazy.
For a very long time. Yeah, it is crazy.
And I've never heard that.
So This is ordained by the United States, or it's a United Nations plan outside of, like, in on the underground?
So I think the way to look at this, right, is that, and I know your trepidations on all of it, because it's scary, right? It's like really?
I'm not trepidatious about it, but I have a lot of questions.
I'm trepidatious about it, but I see how these globalists work. Now that we have enough people who have been a part, we've seen their documents, we've seen it written down, we've seen leaked memos, we've seen these meetings come out, we've seen hidden videos of them admitting to this. Like, enough is enough. And by the way, we're seeing it in action, right? We're seeing it with the pandemic. We're seeing it with lockdowns. We're seeing it with what's going on in Ukraine and sanctions and energy crisis and energy prices and everything. Of course, it's all been planned, right? The Beyond Meat, getting rid of meat, all of it's coming together.
Right.
So, the United Nations is just simply like a mouthpiece for these unelected globalists. That's it, right? So is the United States, right? So these unelected globalists are running the show.
Okay, sure.
So the unelected globalists, the Klaus Schwabs, the people, the billionaire class who are running everything, are just basically funneling money and picking and choosing their winners. You have the BlackRocks, the Vanguards of the world who are funneling, they own everything, right? So they don't want borders. Borders makes trade inconvenient. It makes commerce inconvenient for them. And so imagine 100 million people moving into the United States. It would make these borders artificially that are there anyway worthless. And to create like a new North American European Union, basically.
Yeah.
We already have it with NAFTA, right? We already have it with trade agreements. Why not just get rid of the borders altogether and just call it what it is?
Did you know that?
Well, in my journey...
Go ahead, please.
Sorry. Well, I was just going to say my journey of like getting to where I'm at today, like I started off and like the first rabbit hole I went down, I was like, oh no, I don't want to believe this. This was so hard to believe. But then when you go through that over and over and over again, and you just realize these people are not here for us at all. Globally, they're not here for the people. They're here for their own interests. And so once you start to look at everything through that lens, every narrative that they put out starts to fall apart.
Yeah. It's scary. What were you going to say?
No, go ahead.
So I just want to listen to that soundbite again. Let's play that soundbite again where she talks about this source at the United Nations. Listen.
And what I learned from a source who is a very unique source, having infiltrated the globalist cult at the UN level, is that he was in high-level meetings that required a number of security clearances where they actually discussed the plan to bring 100 million people into the United States in order to pave the way for a regional government of U.S., Canada, and Mexico.
It's unbelievable. And so I'll wrap it up with this, what she says finally here on this plan. Listen.
And that was to bring in 100 million people from Latin American countries together with a strategy of creating these cartels, making life unbearable. It's called a push-pull strategy, where they push all these people out of these countries where it's unbearable living like this, and they pull them into the United States. And then once you reach that critical number of over 100 million in this invasion, they will then propose that, well, for your family and friends back home who need, you need ease of travel, they need a better life, and so on and so on. And we can do all this better with a regional government than we can with a U.S. government. And they will have enough critical mass inside the country in order to effect that policy. That's the globalist plan that we're working towards. But what we're already doing is living under their policy, where they've made the right to migrate a human right, recognized the UN in 2018, and that now supersedes our sovereign right, thanks to the Biden administration and the open border ideologues who are in this government, who were never asked to be honest about their strategy in the campaign trail, who have bypassed the legislature and are implementing a strategy and a policy that not only did no Americans vote for it, because they weren't even given the opportunity, but most Americans don't support.
Oh, that's heavy stuff.
She's an investigative journalist and one of the best in the business. And I mean, to have that, I would love to see documentation of this. And I'm going to reach out to Lara. I'd love to have her on the show to go deeper into this subject. And I think it makes total sense, though, when you see all of this coming together like this, and you wonder, like, why is no one stopping this? Like, why are the borders just an absolute disaster zone right now in the United States? It's really, really troubling.
Well, and also the immigrants are being used as pawns right now. They're like a political chess. They're sending them to Martha's Vineyard. Like the Republicans are sending them into Democratic states. The Democrats are blaming Republicans. Like it's like they're just being used right now. And so it is completely crazy down there. And it's like, is this planned? Is this like the chaos that they want us to focus on while they're just sending people in? Because did you see those stories on Fox News where they were just busing people to different cities in the United States in the dark of night?
Oh yeah, and then of
Yeah.
course to Martha's Vineyard over last week. Ron
In daylight, though,
In
they
daylight.
want those people to be seen in those places.
And then, of course, a few days later, they got them in a bus and took them off of Martha's Vineyard via ferry and then onto a bus now in Cape Cod. So they got them off of the island. And I mean, it's just like, you imagine. And I was thinking about like these poor people. Like, I mean, they're just in these buses. They're like, where are we going now? You know, you got kids. Like,
Yeah, they're just
Dad,
trying
where
to
are we
get a
going
better
now?
life.
Where are we going now? You know.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're trying to get a better life, and we're using them like political tools.
I would love to hear from our viewers what you guys think about this. Do you believe this story? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below.